Let me pull that file up. One screen today. So Margaret Otto is our speaker. She's passionate about the intersection of agriculture, water use, and environmental stewardship. In 2019, she earned her bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from The Ohio State University, where she completed a thesis with Andrea Grattoli in Coral Resiliency Lab, and sparked her interest in water quality and conservation. Having spent time living and working on host farms. Somebody joining us by phone there. So she spent time living and working on host farms with the worldwide opportunities of organic farms, also known as WOLF, through her college career. She decided to pursue a career in aquaponic food production after graduation. So in 2019, Margaret has worked as a water resources specialist at Superior Fresh. And that's just down in Hixton, Wisconsin. So just down 94 a little ways, not too far of a drive. So Superior Fresh is the largest aquaponic facility in the world, right? She maintains the water quality there and ensures compliance with environmental regulations and spearheads sustainability innovations. So with that, Margaret, it is your show. If you want to see your slides share.
Perfect. Yeah, hopefully I can figure it out this time.
And I'll remind everybody to mute themselves so that we are only listening to Margaret and we're not getting echoes.
Okay, and forgive me because we're in food production, so we have been, we've never had to go remote or anything, so I don't use Microsoft Teams or Zoom or anything all that frequently, so just let me know if something's screwy and I'll try to fix it. But does this look good so far?
All right, you are in editing mode.
Okay, how's that?
And if you did check your button for audio, then we should be able to see that, hear that at the video.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Take the show.
All right.
It's
so
good to me.
Sounds good. So yeah, my name is Margaret Otto. I'm the water resources specialist here at Superior Fresh. We're just about 30 miles down the road in Hixton. Yeah, there's my contact info. You guys feel free to reach out at any time. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn too, so if you ever need anything, let me know. Happy to help. So today we're going to go over chemistry and how that plays into the future of farming here at Superior Fresh. So right off the bat, Superior Fresh is an aquaponics facility, and that's the combination of aquaculture, which is raising aquatic animals in a farming environment, and hydroponics, which is growing plants without soil. A lot of people will do this one or the other, but Superior Fresh is one of the only facilities that combines them together in an aquaponic fashion. So I have a quick video. This mostly focuses on the salmon, but we raise Atlantic salmon, and this is a partnership with Festival Foods that we have.
Fresh Atlantic salmon, grown locally right here in Wisconsin. Superior Fresh offers you the opportunity to buy local, support your local economy, and provide the freshest, healthiest fish available for your family. Find our salmon at all Wisconsin Festival Foods locations.
This is the future of environmentally controlled agriculture. With 90% of America's seafood currently imported, Superior Fresh is showing us what the future of seafood and agriculture is looking like without harming our ocean or other natural resources.
It's the United States' first indoor Atlantic salmon farm. We can produce over 2 million pounds of fresh, local, safe, healthy food right here in the Midwest.
Here at Superior Fresh, we grow our fish without any antibiotics or hormones, but instead, they are full of protein and omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for your brain and heart. Superior Fresh salmon, healthy, fresh, and locally grown responsibly, and your best farm-to-table option.
Okay.
Fresh.
Nope, we don't need to see it again. So yeah, that's a marketing video, obviously.
Atlantic salmon.
My goodness. But that's what we do. We raise Atlantic salmon. On the left is my friend Sarah here. She's the horticulturist harvesting some red butterhead lettuce. And on the right is Bree. She's one of our aquaculture technicians. That's probably like a 15-pound salmon that we harvested. So we're the first land-based Atlantic salmon producer in the US, and we're also the largest aquaponic producer in the whole world. No one is doing it at this scale. It's very difficult, and it's cool to be a pioneer in this field. So why is aquaponics important? At Superior Fresh, we're able to produce about 7 million pounds of fresh, high-quality, non-GMO food every year. We're certified organic, and we distribute only in the Midwest. So if you guys know anything about food miles, it's how far your food travels before it reaches your plate. And we're able to really lower that down while also recapturing all nutrients from our production facility. So you don't get the runoff that you'd get. I'm from Ohio, and Lake Erie is wildly polluted, and we get crazy algae blooms, and that's from all the agricultural runoff and the fertilizers that come from that area. We're able to recapture all that, so we don't have any issues with that. We provide over 100 local jobs all year round. We never have an off season, and in doing all this, we disrupt a food system that has just been decimating our environment, both on land and in water. So how do we disrupt it? On the fish side, the status quo is, at least for Atlantic salmon, of farmed Atlantic salmon, about 99% of it is grown in ocean pens, which are just massive rings, like you can see in that picture. They're just open nets in the ocean, and they're placed in areas with great water quality, perfect for salmon. And that ends up being really pristine environments off the coast of Chile, Scotland, and Norway. And so over 90% of fish that we consume in the US is imported, and it's often from these net pens. Since it's all just nets, zero waste is captured, and you have crazy amounts of disease, especially sea lice, and you can have escapes, which can really impact wild salmon populations. How Superior Fresh challenges and disrupts this model is by using RAS, which is a recirculating aquaculture system. And that means that we are able to recirculate about 99% of the water in our system. We can recapture all of the waste and all those nutrients. We have zero discharge from that production, no chance of escapes, and the flavor is really great, and it's a really clean product. The same vein, we have our hydroponic side. We're currently, for field-grown greens, especially in the Midwest, you know, it's cold so much of the year that we have to truck in about 90% of production, and that usually comes from California and Arizona, which are really water scarce regions. So this puts a huge strain on water resources there. There's all kinds of food safety issues. I'm sure you guys have heard of E. coli outbreaks and things associated with romaine and other lettuce. This is a very seasonal product, and typically it's not local, especially if you are somewhere cold. How we can change that at Superior Fresh is by having a really intensive growing environment. We're able to produce about 20 times more lettuce per acre on our land versus if you were to grow in a field. We're certified organic. We have really strict biosecurity, so the product is unwashed. There's no chlorinated water, anything that gets added to your lettuce, and you can get it year round. We never slow down. We'll have dips and spikes in production, obviously, that's just how it goes. And the flavor is really great because we can select varieties that taste good rather than varieties that can survive drought conditions or what you might have in Arizona or California. So we do this by using the best available technology that we have, including water treatment, automation, and harvest and processing, because we do have such a high volume of product every day, and automation of environmental control. And this all ties together because we have a really highly trained and disciplined and super smart staff. On the left, you can see this is part of our environmental control. These are our LED lights. We operate, it looks purple because red and blue wavelengths do wonders for plant growth. So yeah, if you ever drive by us at night, you'll see the purple glow. And also, if you have questions at any time, just let me know. So here's some production stats for you guys. In our salmon RAS, we are currently producing about 1.3 million pounds per year. and that correlates to 2,500 premium fish that are harvested every week. We're not there quite yet because we just had an expansion, so the fish are still growing. We raise them for about 2 years before they reach the like 10-pound final weight. And yeah, we just finished up our last expansion of the fish house in 2020. On the greenhouse side, we're able to produce about 6 million pounds per year, all in leafy greens and head lettuce. We're also trialing microgreens and herbs. We have 13 acres under glass right now, and this represents a 4-fold increase in production since 2018. We've just been expanding super rapidly, and yeah, Wisconsin's been a great place for it. So to dig into the nutrient side, and this is where the chemistry really comes into play, is that since we can recapture everything, we can really maximize the nutrients that are present in our system. We have such a tight system where everything's recirculated and our resources are used well. So every 1.1 pound of fish feed that goes into the system is able to produce 1 pound of fish at the end, and the waste from that 1 pound of fish can produce up to 10 pounds of leafy greens. So you're getting 10 pounds of product out at the end from 1.1 pounds of feed in up front. And that's great. You just can't achieve that in an open system. So 99.5% of our processed water is recycled. That's how we're able to achieve that feed conversion ratio is what it's called. And any production water that does spill, or if we have to drain something for whatever reason, that doesn't just go down the road or into the sewer. We are able to capture that in our irrigation ponds, and we use that to irrigate 42 acres of alfalfa and native plants. We're on 800 acres of old farmland that we're actively restoring with native species and trees. And to supplement the soil there, we compost all waste lettuce, roots and stems, unsold product, and the fish offal, like the guts and what have you from our fish operation. So it's a cool place. It's a farm. It's really high tech, but at the end of the day, it is farming, which I love. So how do we do this? It comes down to the nitrogen cycle. This is a really big part of it. It's something simple that we have to really fine tune so that everything's in balance. So fish produce ammonia when they excrete waste. And ammonia is toxic to fish, and plants can't use it either. So we use biofilters to convert the ammonia first to nitrite and then to nitrate. In the nitrate form, the plants can take it up. So it's a 2-step process in this conversion, and it's an aerobic process. So we're relying on these Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter bacteria to process the waste into forms that, 1, are not toxic to fish, and 2, can be taken up by our plants. So the plants will use the nutrients that we are able to extract from all the fish feces, and that's how we can grow 10 pounds for every 1 pound of fish that we produce. Like I mentioned, nitrite and ammonia are both really toxic to fish at low levels. So where my role comes into play is that it's a big balancing act all the time, where we want to have enough oxygen in the bioreactor so that the bacteria will, convert the ammonia. And then if oxygen isn't in excess, then these other reducing bacteria, they can start consuming nitrate, which then produces the nitrite, which is toxic. And in the absence of nitrate, they'll start consuming sulfate. And if that happens, they'll pull the oxygen off that SO4 molecule, and it'll produce hydrogen sulfide, which is wildly toxic to fish at maybe 1 to 4 parts per million. And when you see big die-offs in farmed fish operations, this is typically what you'll see. There's a facility operating out of Miami, Florida called Atlantic Sapphire, and they just killed about 500 fish a month ago with this hydrogen sulfide. So it all boils down to chemistry, and you just have to have the right things in excess, the other things in balance, and your system can operate smoothly, but you can really run into serious problems very quickly. Yes. But that's why we have a team of experts to keep everything in check. So We have great growers and horticulture. I'm the water chemistry person. We design a lot of our own systems because there's nothing else like it. So we have experts in engineering and CAD, and it's a great place to work and learn. So now to get into my career journey, I guess. I studied chemical engineering at Ohio State. I graduated 2 years ago now. I had a sustainability focus, and I also minored in Spanish because it was just something I enjoyed. And agriculture, water use, and environmental stewardship have always been my motivating factors. I started out getting into this whole area in undergrad. I worked in Andrea Gratoli's coral research and resiliency lab. We focused on climate change stress, so ocean acidification and ocean warming, and how that correlates to coral bleaching. On the bottom there, it's from the field in Hawaii. I got to go in the field for about 6 weeks, and it was great. We were working super hard, but those are all different tanks with different climate change conditions, like simulated in the tanks. So it taught me a ton of new skills. I was the only engineer in this whole group of biologists, and personally I like having that different perspective and just getting to learn from all different types of people. And I was able to get this role because I just heard my professor speaking at an event during Welcome Week at college, and I thought she was cool, so I emailed her, and turns out about a year later she had an opening. So my experience has been that if I'm curious about something, I'll just reach out and see what I can get, and sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's fine. So yeah, I really loved working in this lab. I completed a thesis with it. You can see on the top right, and I worked with her for about 3 years, and we're still friends now, which is cool. So then I kind of got into farming because I was in Hawaii already for this field work, and I wanted to stick around, but I couldn't afford to pay for a hotel or anything. So my friends had worked with this program called WOOF, Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. And I figured I'd give it a go because it's a work exchange, so you work 5 hours a day, in exchange for food and housing. So it was a really cheap way to travel and learn and work and meet people. And so I've had great experiences with it. It's something that I continue to do today. I've done it in Hawaii, New York. I was on a bison ranch in Montana after I graduated college in 2019. And now I help out on a flower farm up in Colfax on the weekends, sometimes in the summer. It's just great. I think that there's no better way to learn quickly than to move into someone's house and work with them every day. And I've learned really how to think on my feet and be adaptable and stuff with this. And with farming, you really need to know how to do that, because even at a high-tech place like Superior Fresh, you can still run into the same, crop disease problems or issues with labor, harvest problems. And if you don't have the background, or at least the backbone to stand up to that, you're in trouble. So I love WOOF. I recommend it to anyone. Seriously, if this piques your interest at all, let me know, because I've learned more from this program and with volunteer farming than I did in most of my college career. It's great. Anyway, from that, I got an internship with Dayton Valley Aquaponics, and this is outside of Reno, Nevada. I figured this was as close as I'm going to get to using my engineering background in a farming setting. I was basically the maintenance guy there. It was cool. I definitely learned a lot because that's not my specialty at all. And that's where I also was able to apply my Coral Lab stuff to water testing. And that's what I do here today too. So it all circles back. Yeah, I got to work on a lot of projects. We're a small team, so it was kind of help us out, figure it out. And yeah, we lived and worked together with the other interns, and to be honest, the pay was very little.
Unknown participant is now
The pay was very low, but for me, it was worthwhile to figure out if this was something that I was interested in. I think that volunteering and things like this, where maybe the pay or the experience isn't exactly what you're looking for, but if it's something you're genuinely curious about, I have found that it's worthwhile to dig into. So I loved it. We grew tomatoes and raised tilapia. And at the time, I thought this was the craziest place I'd ever seen. I thought it was so cool. And then eventually I heard about Superior Fresh. Anyway, after that, I figured I should at least try an engineering role because my program was very, very hard on me. And I didn't want to put all that hard work to waste and not even try to do an engineering gig. It's not for me, I found out. So I worked at Cargill corn milling. We made like cornstarch and corn syrup. And I was an environmental co-op, and I worked with a lot of air emission points and did some environmental audits. And I figured if there's an engineering role that's going to work for me, it will be this one. And it just wasn't a fit. So, but I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't done it. And I have found that if I don't try something out, I'll just keep thinking about it forever. So it's in my best interest to just go for it, even if it's short term. And I'm glad I did, but you never know if you don't try. So that brings me here. So I did these 2 internships at DVA and at Cargill. I had 1 semester left of college, and I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to finish it out because I felt like I had no idea what I was doing with my life. And so I ended up applying for a ton of jobs and took a year off when I had 1 semester left of my undergrad, and spent the first half of the year in Nevada and the second half at Cargill, and finished up my degree in spring of 2019. And since then, I reached out to Superior Fresh when I was finishing up my last semester, and then came out to interview in the summer and ended up here. So I am the water resources specialist here. I run the water testing lab. You can see I'm in here now. I'd give you a tour, but it's a little messy, so I will not do that today. We run the water testing lab. I couldn't even tell you the amount of gallons of water that we have on site, but we have 19 pools. I think each one is 140,000 gallons. And we have our fish facility houses 600,000 salmon from egg to 10-pound 2-year-old fish. So there's a lot of water to work with. So I'm in charge of water testing. I also, since we don't discharge any water to outside waterways, we have our own wells. We're not connected to the sewer system or anything. I'm in charge of all of our environmental compliance, and we have the biggest, most complicated wastewater discharge permit in the state because we have all these ways that we process our wastewater on site. So we have compost, we have our irrigation, we have other things that I don't think I'm allowed to speak on today just because it's intellectual property and whatnot, but there's a lot of moving parts. And alongside with that, I work on research projects. Here we're doing a little water chemistry trial. You can see these styrofoam floating rafts that we use to plant seedlings in. That's my trusty multi-parameter probe. I'm also working on some sustainability initiatives with, I can't get into that either, but they're cool. And once they come through, I will post about it, I'm sure. And so my advice is that I've done a lot of unconventional jobs and experiences and whatnot to get here, and I'm really happy in this role. And I think that sometimes taking risks and entertaining your own curiosity is the best way to figure stuff out. I got my role here because I DM'd Superior Fresh on Instagram because I couldn't find a good contact email address or phone number, and they're like, yeah, talk to Ben, use this email address, and they actually followed through and responded to me. So I mean, it helps that I had the experience, and I'm really passionate about aquaponics, but seriously, people are willing to help, especially at small companies like this. And there was no job opening for me when I reached out, but they took a chance and found a spot for me, and it's been really great. So I figure, and I'm doing the same thing every day here, that people know that I'm interested in these sustainability projects. So if I keep bringing it up, like eventually someone in someone's network will have something come up and then they'll know to pass it to me. And that's been happening recently and it feels good. So anyhow, I'm no expert. I've been out of college for 2 years, but I feel like I've done and seen a lot, maybe. So I'm happy to help you guys out however you like. And if you have any questions, we can do that now. Thanks.
Thank you, Margaret.
I got a question.
That was enjoyable. Let's see if we've got some students with questions first. And I can't see any student hands. Let me see if I can get the +15 here. I'm also new at this, Margaret, so it's,
Oh, that is okay.
yeah. Well, Tal, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so the picture that we see there, Margaret, there's a whole bunch of vegetable and plants growing there. Are they growing in water or is that soil under there?
Yeah, so I guess I could have explained all this to you guys. We grow only in water. So the rafts that you can kind of see here, we have styrofoam rafts. Each of the slots gets filled with a little bit of media, maybe a centimeter thick, so that the seeds have something to germinate in. Basically, that's the whole goal of it. And then from there, they're in these styrofoam rafts and they get put into our pools. These are about a foot deep of water. That's it. And yeah, the roots just grow into the water. And so that's why I'm testing the water quality so frequently, is because that's where they get all the nutrients and their oxygen and all that. Yeah.
I've got Sanchita, but is that a student with a hand up? Hello? Anybody there?
Hi. This is
Sanchita.
Christy. I'm not a student, but my hand is also up if that's what you're seeing.
Okay, all right. Sanchita was in ahead of you, so we'll have Sanchita go ahead.
Hi, Margaret. It was a very good talk. I have a quick question regarding the nutrition value for this farm-raised salmon versus the wild salmon. I heard that this usually the farm-raised salmons are more fatty. It means like they have more fat content compared to the other minerals. So how do you maintain those things?
So something like that, I would say that most farmed salmon that you'll get is from these net pens, where they just kind of place big, essentially they're tanks, but they're no walls. It's all just contained with a net. They'll just place them into the bay of, you know, off the coast of whatever country you're in. And so the water temperature and chemistry might be good for salmon, but they don't get the swimming speed that they would normally have in rivers or in the ocean or wherever they are. So typically, yeah, you will get less fit, fattier fish from farmed salmon like that. What we're able to do with our totally contained system is control the swimming speed that they have. So we swim them so that they're like basically working out their whole lives. So you get really firm muscle tone. It's not so fatty. I mean, we have really high omega-3 fatty acid levels because we are still using that comes from the feed, and it's a really good quality feed of fish meal and fish oil. And but there's not a lot of, or not as much intramuscular fat, or like it's a really high quality product. And I think the farmed fish gets a bad rap because of stuff like that. But we have really fit fish, and we have very low mortality and basically no disease because we have such a tight system. So yeah, they're not all farmed fish is created equal, but yeah.
and can I ask another question about this nitrogen? I mean, it's like ammonia to nitrate. The plants, those hydroponic plants, from where they get the maximum nitrogen? Are those enough nitrogen they get from the fish? They excrete the ammonia, or do you need to provide some nitrogen gas for
Nope.
those plants? Okay.
No, yeah, we're able to, there are certain organic approved nutrients that we do have to add that the fish just, it doesn't come from the feed or from the waste, but it's very few and far between. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Who else?
Christy, sorry, I'm muted. I'm unmute now.
Hi, Margaret. That was a really cool talk. Sounds like Superior Fresh is doing really interesting things. I'm one of the analytical chemistry professors, and so I'm really interested in what types of water tests you do. Can you talk a little bit about the types of tests you do and the methods you use, as much as you can, of course?
Yeah, I can't get into it a ton, but we're not, we don't have any lab certifications, so we can use basically whatever methodologies work well for us. Obviously, for things like my environmental compliance, I do have to send that out to accredited labs, but for our routine testing, we have a spectrophotometer where you can, it just uses a color change to determine the amount of whatever concentration of whatever you're looking at. Other than that, we get a lot from our handheld probes. We'll do things like TSS, total suspended solids. That's a really big metric in a recirculated system because you aren't removing any of, you are removing it in some step, but you have to make sure that your removal is efficient so that it's not constantly building up in your system. So it's nothing crazy. It's nothing, there's nothing proprietary that we're coming up with to test water here, but yes, I think that is as much as I will get into it.
Great, thank you.
Muted.
Yeah. Okay. Who else we got with a hand up? My screen's not letting me see who it is.
I'll go. This is Jim. Margaret, thank you for a wonderful and fascinating talk. I was privileged, I think 2 or 3 years ago, to visit your facility with a sustainability class that I'm one of the instructors for, and I was absolutely taken with it. I've also eaten the salmon product, on any number of occasions, so I wholeheartedly give my recommendation for that. Yeah, so also as a person who has a split appointment in chemistry and in environmental studies, I was really appreciative of your career path. I think Dr. Nichagupta kind of stole my question. I'm an analytical chemist as well. I suppose I was a little surprised that you're not using, say, like online continuous like ion chromatography or something like that, because just the sheer quantity of sampling you must do. Looking at that slide right there, the geographical area, I would imagine you have to worry a lot about nutrient gradients and things like that. That's your job as an engineer, of course, is to deal with things like gradients and flow and whatnot. So I suppose that's kind of my question. It's maybe not as analytical, but more engineering-y. How do you maintain relatively homogeneous level of nutrients, particularly in the vegetable growing portion, which is geographically so much larger than the salmon?
There are definitely gradients. It helps us in some way that we do have so much volume. Like some hydroponic growers will grow in these gutter systems where a trickle of water will come down and touch the plant roots. But with such a large volume, it kind of acts like a battery. And once you get your levels established, it's a bit easier to maintain them where you want them to be. So that's at least on our side. There are definitely gradients. You're never going to get perfect mixing. But we've just found, just with time and experience, where to pull samples from, what that means, what you have to add. But so, like, the continuous monitoring is something that I would like to pursue more, because our goals are to expand this in larger facilities and other locations too. So like, it's just not going to be feasible to test every location. And there are companies, there's a company called Ketos, Ketos, that does continuous water quality monitoring. With the way our system is set up, and we have all these separate pools, and it's not one nutrient tank where you're irrigating everything, it's tough to get every location monitored all the time. So for now at this scale, we're doing one by one. So yeah.
So if I have a quick follow-up question then I think one thing that must be important to you is probably sampling strategy. So how do you go about, how do you go at deciding where to sample and how frequent to sample, realizing that there's one of you and there's a huge area to cover? How important was your preparation? Did you get any of that in your engineering and chemical engineering background, or was that something that you kind of had to learn as you went?
A bit of both. I mean, I think what I gained out of my engineering degree was problem solving and kind of common sense, and how to, in an especially complicated system like this, like where are you going to get the representative thing you're looking for? So for us, we pull samples close to the overflow drain, just because it's at the level where the plant roots see it. It's what's about to be returned to the fish house, so you can see what's getting depleted at the far end. So yeah, that's what's worked for us.
Well, thanks. It's really amazing. It's really an amazing operation.
Good. Good.
Again. Okay. It looks like I've still got a hand up. Who's that?
I've got a hand up. This is Warren.
Oh, okay, Warren. Since I can't see who they are.
That was very yeah, our family's been a big fan of Superior Fresh products.
Good.
How it works, and I was so interested by how you sort of merged the hydroponics with the aquaculture, and you did speak to the vegetable side of things. And I'm wondering if there's anything that moves back in the other direction, waste from the vegetable side of things that end up maybe in the feed, and I guess just in general, what is the source of it?
Sorry, I missed part of your question.
Okay, so you talked about how the waste from the fish side of things was used on the plant side, and I'm wondering if there's anything that cycles back in the other direction from the
I see.
to the fish. I'm looking at if that loop is closed in some way.
Yeah, I think since the fish are heterotrophs, they don't get a lot from, like, the plants do more to improve water quality for the fish than they do to provide any nutrients or value that way to the fish. It's more of the fish get their nutrients from the feed on a daily basis rather than gaining too much from the plant side. What I would love to do someday, and I don't know if Superior Fresh, if this is in the plan, but like I have a friend that runs a farm in Hawaii, and he is using some of the plants that he grows to feed black soldier fly larvae, and then the fish can eat like the larvae that grow on your compost or whatever other feed you have. So you can really close a loop that way. But when you get something at this scale and the biosecurity is such a big priority, it's tough to close the loop that way and grow like an insect, for example, to feed your fish.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have any questions from students, maybe? Please. I can't tell Deirdre I got no questions out of students. All right. Somebody save my bacon, please.
And like I said, if you come up with it later, you can email me, or I'm on LinkedIn all the time too. So.
No, they got to come up with something.
Okay, but you can also ask now.
Max got one.
I can ask one. I know you kind of talked about it like before your talk, but how has your work changed due to COVID? Because I know, like, when it first started, a lot of people got sent home, but it seems like you guys have to do constant monitoring. So how did that all work out for you guys?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I mean, there was so much, with good reason, there's so much hype and fear around getting sick, and like in a production environment, like you're harvesting lettuce next to 10 people. So it was really tricky to pivot from our normal operations to what we've seen now with COVID. But since we are food production, our production only ramped up because suddenly all the supply lines where you get the lettuce from California and Arizona, those were all shutting down. So we were sold out like every single day, all the time. And a lot of what we do is head lettuce. So we'll grow full-size heads of lettuce, and that goes to food production. It'll go to college cafeterias and stuff like that. Those were suddenly all closed too. So we had to pivot to doing mostly these baby greens, like you see in the you saw in the picture, and like your spring mix. So it was a matter of installing like plexiglass barriers and requiring face masks, and pivoting to all baby greens. And from the water monitoring end, that's never going to change. So I was still coming in every day, and I would get pulled to harvest lettuce more often just because we were stressed for people. But it's just been nonstop. I have a note in my car still when there are like travel restrictions and things saying that I was like an essential worker. I could still come to work, but it's been a crazy year. And yeah, like we saw some stress on the fish side too, because those mostly go to restaurants, our salmon, and that just wasn't happening with COVID. But we're getting there. We're figuring it out now towards the end of the pandemic. So.
Okay, so Margaret, I have a follow-up question. So the vegetable there, it seemed like it's a big operation. So harvesting the vegetable, does the factory use farm workers, or you guys do it yourself?
A bit of both. We have the head lettuce side, we mostly do by hand. On the baby greens, the scale is just so massive that we use a lot of automation for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else?
Well, I get to ask one then. I'm looking at your conversion of ammonia to nitrate. How efficient is that? I mean, what's the residual ammonia, let's say, in parts per million or whatever, after it's been through that nitrifying bacteria filter?
It's just about zero. It's very, very low, because since it is a recirculated system, if there are residuals, they'll build up over time. So we have to do, like, it has to be fully removed, basically. Yeah.
Do you need to replace your bacteria beds at all?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Only been here a year and a half, but yeah, the person who designed the fish systems, his name is Steve Sommerfeld, and he has his PhD in chemical engineering. So it's nice to have similar backgrounds, even if he is he has decades more experience than me. But he was the director of research at the Freshwater Institute for 25 years. So basically any land-based salmon and wrasse that you see in the US now is designed by him. So he's designed all that, and he'd be a better resource than me. But
well,
yeah, it's crazy to work with him.
Pass on to him my gratitude, because like Warren, we get your salmon from festival, and it is lovely.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, and so soon, I don't know if I should be saying this, but soon we'll start having salmon burgers and maybe some smoked salmon. So there's more to come.
Smoked salmon is good. Salmon burgers, I think I'll give them this. I like steaks.
I agree. Cool.
Students, we have 5 minutes left. Who's going to jump in now? Oh, come on.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Well, you're almost a student. Go ahead, Jim.
This is an odd one. It's not technical. But
Okay.
let's just say that someone who likes to fish for migratory trout and salmon would like to acquire a little salmon spawn. Is that something that Superior Fresh has an
I'm gonna, I don't know the answer, but I'm gonna guess that it's a no. But but we do raise them from eggs, so in theory I could get you the goods, but I'm gonna say no.
Doesn't hurt to ask. If you're ever going to throw any out, I'll take it.
Okay, I'll write your name down.
Anyone else?
Sure, I'll ask one other question. This is Jim again. You said you work with supplying some universities and food service. Has there been any, do you work with any Sodexo? I mean, this is kind of way outside of your particular area of business operations, but do you know if you have a relationship with any Sodexo shops, and whether maybe if people at this university, which is a Sodexo shop, wanted to push forward for using Superior Fresh as an exclusive supplier of things like greens and salmon, if that would even be a possibility? Is that part of your business model?
I imagine so. That I don't even know if I want to speak to that because I don't know. I know that I think we send stuff to Stevens Point and Stout, so I imagine that Eau Claire can get in there too. But I can talk to sales if you'd like. I'm sure we'd be happy to. Yeah, because we have 3 more acres of greenhouse that are coming online in the next few months, so we'll have the capacity, I'm sure.
When I was there 3 years ago, I thought the place was enormous. I can't even imagine what it looks like now.
It's crazy. So we do tours outside of COVID, so someday it can be an option again, whenever.
Jim, is that a residual hand or a new one?
I forgot to lower it.
Oh. All right, students, 3 minutes to go. Come on. One question. One question. Just one.
Come on, guys.
Pretty please.
Anyone want a woof? I'll talk to you about woof if you want to farm. You can take my word for it. You don't have to ask me.
All right, I'll ask you about wolf then.
It's this a work exchange program, I suppose, with homestays, and so I used it initially as a cheap way to travel around Hawaii because I found myself working on a ranch 5 hours a day, and this guy that owned the property made his money by building luxury homes for like celebrities in Hawaii. So I was staying in the most beautiful house I've ever stayed in, you know, working with some horses and cows and whatever during the day. And then after work, I could go snorkel or do whatever in the ocean. Obviously, that's not going to happen at most farms, but every place I've been, it's just been, I learned more, and I think it's greater than the last one I was at. And I think it forces you to be adaptable, and it really feels important to be connected to your food. I think maybe that's just the hippie part of me, but it's cool. I mean, you eat every day, so you have a real choice to make an impact with what you eat. So for me to get involved with it by farming, it's been probably the most influential thing I've ever done. So I've been trying to talk people into woofing for years, and no one's taken me up on it. I always just did it by myself, and I had a good time. You have to choose the right host and the right farm based on your capabilities and what you're looking for, but I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, I had a niece that did that.
Yeah, I think it's great. And now I'm just doing it on.
She now works on her own CSA.
That's great. Yeah, I just got a plot in the community garden down the road from me this summer. So if you're on at the Demler Community Garden, that's where I will be in the 3rd Ward.
Okay, well, the time has actually come. I should make the point that you're actually 3 decades too young to really be a hippie. There are some of us who remember, well, sort of remember those days. So everybody, if you can unmute, and let's thank Margaret for a fascinating talk.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.